I totally forgot I was wearing this shirt today, but somebody in my YouTube comments said something about it, and so I thought I would explain it really quickly. Okay, this shirt was in a free pile, and I saw it and had to get it. So let me read it to you real quick, and then I'll explain why. It says, disruptor, a person or thing that interrupts an event, activity, or process by causing a disruption or a problem. So one of the things I say pretty frequently about my commitment to nonviolent resistance is that nonviolence is not peaceful. Nonviolence is disruptive. If we aren't disrupting, interrupting, disturbing the events, activities, and processes of the system in power, we really need to be supplementing the strategies that we are employing. We need to try some new activities. The goal here is not to just get our feelings out, right? The goal is to stop fascism, right? And then think about the workers over billionaires protests that we all went to Monday, Labor Day, today. Probably won't publish this till tomorrow, but you know what I mean. If we want to disrupt the exploitive operations of the billionaires who are pulling strings everywhere, not just on the right, y'all, they're throwing around their influence and their dollars in any way that they can to protect their own power, their own wealth, and also try to shape the world the way they think it should be shaped, not for your benefit, but for theirs. We want to disrupt that system that is inherently about exploiting all of us and exploiting the planet, then we have to actually disrupt it. Nonviolent protest is not peaceful. None of us should be going to a protest with the expectation that what happens there will be peaceful. Not just because there could be, bad actors, there could be counter protesters. Today at the Honkin' Wave, we had a couple of guys. We had one really ticked off dude with his giant Trump flag. It should just basically say I'm in a cult. Right, of course, he had his pickup truck and he had to make sure that he stepped on the gas as hard as he could, revved his engine a bunch, and let us all know how emotionally dysregulated he was over our little protest. I won't say little. I don't want to diminish it, y'all. There were 130 people there. And there was some other Trumper who came along in his big yellow pickup truck who thought he was really going to own the libs by rolling coal. I've talked about this before, but if you don't know what that is, it's where these guys it's like an add-on to their pickup truck to make it belch huge amounts of black smoke, either smokestacks up the top or out of their tailpipe. Sure, you just go ahead and waste all that gas. They do it because they think it's owning the libs. They're real mad about California emission standards and electric vehicles. Coal rolling started before Elon Musk made himself, Donald Trump's boyfriend, before Teslas were a symbol of MAGA and the alt-right. Right, back when the coal roller types were saying anybody who drove a Tesla was a soy boy, and now they all have Cybertrucks. But anyway, my point is, giant cloud of black smoke blown right in the faces of the protesters because we were right up on the street. Disruptive, right? Not peaceful, not peaceful. So if you go to a protest, you need to have the expectation that counter protesters, dysregulated MAGA hats, they will definitely not be peaceful in response to what you're doing. Also, being aware the law enforcement may brutalize you, right? There is absolutely in 2025 America the expectation that your rights will not, there's no guarantee that your rights will be upheld. And so you have to expect that not only will law enforcement potentially not be peaceful toward you, they may be violent. But in terms of our own actions, we should not be going to protests and thinking this is a peaceful protest. We should be looking for ways to disrupt the system. We should be looking for ways to make it so much harder for the regime to hurt the people that we care about, right? One of the things about effective nonviolent resistance, I don't just mean an individual protest like the one that happened today, which is well and good, right? One-off events, we need to think about them being disruptive, and we need to think about the kind of risk we may take on for ourselves by being willing to be disruptive, right? Whether it is going to a protest outside of, the Project 2025 Heritage Foundation and just blaring really loud music, or whether it is going outside the hotel where ICE is staying and just honking your horn all night long. That's disruptive. It's nonviolent, but it is disruptive. It also may come with legal consequences. So disruptive doesn't necessarily have to mean civil disobedience, but it can. You may be exposing yourself to the potential of getting arrested and having charges against you, and you need to be aware that those risks exist and assess how willing you are to take on those risks, right? We want to go into this work with our eyes open. But again, it's not just those one-off protests that happen. The whole point of nonviolent resistance is that it disrupts the system and erodes the pillars of support. Right? There's nothing peaceful about chiseling away at the pillars of support under the regime. And I think when we're considering the efficacy of our work, one of the things that we need to be thinking about is this effectively disrupting what they're doing? Am I getting in the way of the processes, the events, of the actions, of the goals of the regime? There was a sign at the protest today. It was about ICE. It said something like, if your goal is to kidnap people, then my goal is to make your job harder. And that's what the protests were about. Labor Day, that's what Workers Over Billionaires is about. That's what the labor movement is about. Collectively, when we come together, we actually have the power to disrupt and shut down the system. One of the reasons I consistently, I'll just keep talking about it, labor strikes, y'all, labor strikes get the job done. Because nothing disrupts the profit machine of the billionaires who are currently fucking every last one of us. Nothing disrupts the capitalist system that is intent on exploiting you and me, and currently partnering with the fascists because they think it will enrich. They already have more money than they could spend in a gazillion lifetimes, but they think, hey, under fascism, we can live like gods, we can live like feudal lords and make the American people our serfs. I don't understand how. I do understand, because the reason that these men are so rich in the first place, the reason billionaires exist in the first place, is because they don't have any fucking ethics, right? They're already like totally fine with dehumanizing you and me and every working class person. They're already totally fine with exploiting and destroying the environment. That's how they were able to amass such vast quantities of wealth in the first place. Right now, the Peter Thiels, the Dark Enlightenment dudes, who are just the worst kind of pseudo-intellectuals, but are surrounded by their yes men who will just stroke their egos and their, these dudes have such a warped perception of reality because they are insulated by their tremendous wealth. They really want to live like gods, and they see the Trump regime as the chance to install themselves as such. They forget that they get all of their wealth and power from us. It's our labor, it's our life hours that have made them and that continue to keep the system going, that ensures their wealth and their power. When the people come together, we absolutely have the control. We absolutely have the power if we choose to leverage it. So I guess I just want to encourage folks, when you're thinking about your regular protests and drawing attention to what's happening, when you're thinking about the way that nonviolent resistance is going to be effective where you are, think about how it can be disruptive. Think about how it can disrupt the systems of power that are currently hurting the people that you care about, whether it's how you can disrupt what ICE is doing, whether it's how you can disrupt what the oligarchs are doing. And not necessarily in just like a negative, antagonistic way, right? So one of the things that they want to do is deprive the most vulnerable in this society of their basic needs, right? Of healthcare, of food assistance, things like that. So what can we do to then, their goal is to stop all of those things. So disrupting their goal means engaging in mutual aid, making sure that people actually do get their needs met. When you have any effective nonviolent resistance movement, hang on, my poodle's having a hard time. If the goal of the regime is to make people suffer, to starve them, to end their existence, disrupting the goal of the regime is caring for people, is making sure that people get their needs met. So just some food for thought. We are looking at individual actions that we're undertaking, and we're also looking at a larger strategy for nonviolent resistance. How do we make it disruptive so that it will be effective?